Okay. I think I'm rapping and cat. Oh, do. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Design Junkies podcast. Today we'll be talking about design process and case studies. Our host for today is Jeffrey the Craft Henson. Please, the mic has been passed to you, sir.
That'd be some nice way of delegating your work to me. you be host now, you just switch on. No, yeah. Design processes and case studies. I mean, this is one of the popular topics when it comes to the design space. What's your design process, especially newbies coming in? What's your design process like? How does it look like? How do you prepare case studies? So recently, I also got a DM from one of these guys that I had a session with a couple of weeks ago, and he was asking me about UX process. In my head, I'm like, okay, that's where we reach ID. And later on, I was like, nah, there's me. Per what I know, there's nothing like a UX process. It's a design process, right? It's just that maybe the techniques and stuff where you they consider or the methods you go about your research and other in way they constitute the UX. But yeah, you have the design process, and we'll look at that first, talk about some of the common ones that we know of, or probably how we go about our design process and how we understand it. Then we move on to crafting better case studies, because I believe that's also an issue that needs to be tackled. Because I made a post, I don't know if you guys have seen it, I made a post that case studies are not supposed to be a template. So we will also touch on that too a bit. So who would like to go first? Design process. What's your design process like? What do you understand by it? And yeah, we'll go from there. Sam.
Design process. I mean, yeah, it's really how you go about solving a problem, right? So again, I always speak in the context of working in a product company. So from the point where the issue comes up, where you discuss with your PM, right through the point of launch, and sometimes it's not even when you have the first discussion with your PM. Like in the past episode, I was talking about talking to the support team and looking through the pain points logged by some of the users, right? So I can essentially start from there, right? Understanding the pain points, breaking it down, making sense of it, synthesizing all the things to actually like get the most important things you can use to solve the problem, going through the design phase, getting feedback from various stakeholders, working with engineers to develop it, doing QA, and then going to production and monitoring what is on production, how users are using it, see how you can improve it. Like it's a continual process, so it doesn't end. And yeah, essentially that's what it is. Like how you address a problem and how you keep on iterating it.
Alrighty. Thanks, Mr. Sam. Mike, Reagan, what do you guys have to say?
I want to add something, whatever it is. As I start my design career, or let me put it, the worst mistake you do is going to memorize the design process or the UX process or whatever people call it. And that was one big mistake I did. As you talk, say somebody message you, he asks you what the UX process is all about. It reminded me of that because people think, just like we were saying, that your case study doesn't have to be a checklist. People think that you move from empathize. I think even this guy recently made a tweet about it, UX Derek, that you don't have to finish empathize before you go to define or ideate or put. As I start my career, boy, then you see the way you chew what is photosynthesis for your head inside and all that. That's what I was doing. I realized that now there is no hope. I need to focus on the real thing, like Sam was saying about solving an actual problem. It can start from any point at any time, as long as you know what you're about. So just to put this out there before we even, forgo through any thing, put your head inside.
Alrighty. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Alright, you say favor.
Your bro for na or bro for. Anyways, Mr. Mike.
Okay, so I don't know if for me, right now, let me just ask you guys a question. Has anyone here ever followed the design process step by step ever since they started designing before? Like step by step, if you are working for a company, right? Not that maybe like this is a passion project or something. You are working for a company, right? this is the current sprint. Have you ever gone through?
Nah, I haven't.
Reagan, how about you? Jeff, how about you?
No.
Nope.
So then, like, anytime I think about this thing, I don't really understand where all the hype about the design process is coming from. Because when you are working, you never really follow it step by step. It's very messy and non-linear in terms of like how your process is, right? So then anytime people come and then they keep asking, people keep talking about it, I never really like fully understand it, because your design process will be your design process, right? And not an established like system of working or process of working that is out there.
Okay. Make some talk, then I will touch on this. Some.
Yeah, well, I mean, I disagree with what Michael did talk. Because for me, self, throughout my career, in the early stages of my career, then I did do. I mean, I did address problems. I did design for problems and things, but I never really understood what these double diamond and all these things were. I mean, I knew of them, but I never really understood them. So it was, if once, like, as I go YouTube, where they watch, I said, okay. I mean, the process I use is similar to this, right? And then there's design thinking and what's all that. I think it's essentially like, let's see it as what it is, like a framework, right? They are just frameworks. It's just like you using templates, if I'm to put it that way. Like if you are creating a Notion, something on a Notion, and they have templates. If you want to like track your expenses, you have templates just to guide new users, right? And to give them a quick way to create an experience value, like we've always been saying from past episodes, right? So they are just templates to help new designers have a quick understanding of what it is and how, like, what it means, how they can use it. And then the more you use it, once you understand it, then you can tweak it as you want, right? You can just play around with it as you want. But yeah, I mean, my whole career, I've never actually followed it step by step before, because there's the context is always different. The context is always different, especially if you're working in an actual company versus doing stuff on your own.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. No two ways about it. I also feel like if you just they give you this in a way guidelines, you bab. So say it go give you a head start of how you need to think when solving a problem. Because at the end of the day, you realize you are solving problems, especially for UX designers or product designers, or even designers in general. We are solving users' problems, so we need to consider them. And there are instances where inventors, designers have come up with solutions, but then it doesn't really address the problem. It actually creates more problem. So they thinking in this direction, that's the design thinking process, empathizing and all that. It kind of helped surface the root cause of the problem, and doing that, they actually solved the right problem, right? So it's in a way just giving us this more, like you said, Sam said, framework where you go fee direct us on how we go about it. But the actual thing be say every problem and how you solve it and how you tackle it, right? So you look at the problem. Do I need to go from like start with this approach? If yes, what are some of the constraints? Because you have to also consider the constraints you are facing with, and you have to think around those lines where okay, if this be the constraint, how I go fit solve them. That's how come sometimes when people come up with designs, then later I see designers they bash them, then they feel some way about, unless maybe the design is really bad, then that's fine. But sometimes there are these constraints and maybe probably some things they considered maybe you might not be aware of, but they considered those particular things, and because of that they created that solution. So the design process, like we are always saying, it no be formula way they, right? Every problem, then how you go about them is, and I've made a talk on this where I stated that it's when you look at all those double diamonds, whatever, you have these core fundamentals that cut across them. So you understanding the problem, because you understanding the problem is 80% like solving the problem. So you have to understand the problem first. So understanding the problem could range from you empathizing with the users, doing your research, whatever you want to do, just to understand the problem you are solving. So when you understand the problem, then you come about your ideations, where now whether you do your divergent or convergent thinking, whatever, you come up with solutions, you refine them, test, and see what works best for the user. So you realize most of these processes, or methodologies, they normally use the same approach, right? So for design processes, I think we've all like touched on why we think it's what it is now. I also would love to touch on the case studies, because that's one thing I feel like we need to really address the most. Unless maybe you guys have something to say on the design process. Regan, Sam, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, what you mentioned something about people bashing other people, other designers, whenever they like see their designs and then probably did not understand the full context of what it is that's informed that very design.
Yep.
Yeah, people are just too focused on visuals, right? So maybe they are right. It could be that maybe what they are bashing is clearly the visuals. So maybe you're this thing, they look good, whatever, blah blah blah. But I can tell you for a fact, I've seen companies with very shitty designs, but they make a lot of money. So again, it goes back to the core problem of what we were saying, that design is to solve problems. It's not there to look good. It is not about, this should be nice color, this be nice typography. Yes, they play a role, but at the core of it, it is there to like solve problems for users and not just to look good. Because if it looks good, then it doesn't really solve any problem. Cost 90. So again, whenever you see a person's design and maybe you think they did something wrong, or you have some things to say, it's important to ask questions if you really want to understand it, just to get into the person's mind and understand their thought process and all that. And this also segues into the case studies we're about to talk about, right? Like in your case study, whether it's written on your portfolio, you are presenting, it's always important to give context. Give context first, state the reason why that design was made, what you are trying to solve, and then you go on to explain your design or walk them through your design. Don't just say, okay, so this is the design, can you see my screen? This is the design, so I put this button here and I put this image here, so it gives it this blah blah blah. Again, there's no context to what is this you are trying to do, what are you trying to solve. Is there a problem? It could be that it's a problem with, so for recently, right, I did a redesign for a brand. The brand had some legal issues that they wanted to address, right? So the purpose of the redesign was to address those legal issues and move the design away from what they currently had, so they wouldn't have to like face any copyright claims or concerns and all that, right? So you have to like explain the context of what you're trying to do, then walk people through it, so they have like they constrain themselves and ask specific questions within the context, so they don't go and ask some non-far question that doesn't really tie to what you are doing, right? And it segues into the case studies one. So Henson, you can continue.
I would like to add something though. So with what someone was saying about the whole context and sharing your screen and just saying, I put the button here, I put the button here, is because again, I like to tie things to the actual way, like how I do it. So like I was saying before in the previous episode, when we were talking about collaboration, right? I talked to the product manager, everyone, and then at the end of the day, when you are presenting, like someone was saying, you talk about the problem, the solution, like you walk them through every single thing before you even get to the visual parts, right? But then yes, at the end of the day, you actually put the button here, you put the icons here, but that's not what really matters. Like some said, the visuals, it helps at the end of the day, but the core thing we are looking at this point is solving a problem. So you don't just share your screen and say, the button is for me, do it for me. Yes, you did, but then give them a background story to actually know what you're talking about and what you're presenting to them, so that they can ask them meaningful questions. I'm not asking why the button is this and
This be why storytelling they need, because if you can't really explain what you did, give context as in why you did it the way you did it. Then go blow off your solution. Maybe probably it might be the right solution, but because you weren't able to articulate your design decisions very well, they might say, Charlie, you know what, go back to the drawing board. Why your ball am I? It happens. And I recently had this encounter where with the design system we have our brand color, which is green, right? But it's kind of darker green. But then I needed this bright green somewhere in representing success and all that. So I created another one which is like emerald, so it's more brighter than the darker one. And the stakeholders were like, nah, we need to stop using that because it doesn't match with our brand and that. And the PM came back to me that, you know what, we should take that from our design system. But then because I knew why I did it the way I did it, when I was explaining things to him that, okay, so it's not like I'm scraping off what we have. It's just that currently the colors that we have, that's our brand colors, you can't use it to represent this, right? And you presenting it in that manner kind of gives them, okay, oh, I see. Because now you know there's a brighter color, you have like a darker color. When you are looking at success and one is way darker, definitely it wouldn't really sit well. So putting that contest there, the PM was like, you know what, you've actually convinced me that we should maintain this. So we just dug the idea of taking everything off. Then we moved on to other features that we needed to solve. So yeah, context, they matter. How you go feed, describe your process or why you did what you did. It really they need. And this boils down to our case studies, which we are about to talk about. So anyway, case studies. What's your take on the current wave of crafting case studies? Because I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of case studies and some have their takes on how it's supposed to look and all that, but the core fundamental, I believe that case studies is supposed to show your design decisions, your thought process behind what you created, like the solution. Show us how you came out. Some you might be why the need say you go put for inside. That's my take on them. So it's how you tell that story. That way it will make sense. Give me. So they need say you for follow a particular format, a particular template. As long as you are capturing the needed thing, it's fine. Reagan, you go first, then Mike, then Sam go.
Well, personally, I've not been writing case studies, but then I've been reading a lot of them. So I'll probably listen to the experience people, Mike, Sam. But then just to conclude on the ones I've been reading, one thing I realized with most or majority of the ones I see on Twitter and LinkedIn, I mean the ones by the beginners, like what we're saying before, they are trying to follow that linear process of the UX process, right? So every case study you see the design process there with the whole circle stuff, empathize, define ideas, but need, right? Because definitely you didn't use, and that goes back to the question Mike asked. Has anybody ever used every single step there? But then one thing I realized is these people try to, by force, normally shame. You understand? If you didn't use this step, why are you putting it there? It's not necessarily, right? And there are ones, I don't remember them off head, but there are ones that I'm reading. I think I saw one that has to do with a loan app. And it was very, very engaging because the person did it like a storytelling app. Another one is Jeffrey, a case study he did last year. I think it was about the calculator, and then there was this one about some financial app like that. You get to see the storytelling in that and not necessarily going from step one, step two. Because even I don't think in that your case studies wrote, you mentioned or you kind of said that I use this, I use this, but then you kind of went through the context, what you are trying to achieve, and then your solutions. Because I think there were like 2 or 3, the solutions that came to mind and why you concluded on the final solution. And that's what is actually important because, we want to see your thinking process. What are you solving? What's the final thing? Now, by first idea, really daily like that.
Yeah, but let's all not act like we've not done it before.
Oh, yeah. Like me, I said from the beginning, I chew them. Let me just, I said, Me, I literally chewed them in my head, thinking that you have to follow them.
So you see, just like as I tell you this week, right? I dey work on something where I dey work on a case study right now where I can't really like seem to put my thoughts together because of how I went about that project. Right. So now it's like I'm thinking of all the things I did. Like maybe if I said, okay, cool. If I remember that maybe I did this thing here, I'll just pick that thing, write about it, move on to the next thing that I can remember, write about it. And then when I finish, I'll see how I can piece all of them together in a way that like will make sense for someone to read. Right. And then like also like even like, apart from that too, I'm also working on my portfolio right now. And then for the case studies in there, I am using like a totally different approach where I've broken the case studies down or a case study down into like 4 parts. Basically just an intro about what the platform is about, right? And then the challenge, my approach, and then the solution. Right. So basically like these things. So all these things are usually like in every section, I just write a summary of everything that I did. I don't think each section is more than 2 paragraphs, probably like 1 paragraph with like 5 lines or something, just something very, very short. And then I jump into then I just like show the case study. Sorry, I show what the work I did, and then that's it. I wrap up with the case study. But then if it's for maybe I'm using that same case study to apply for a job, right? Then that one I'll have to expand on like the things that I did because in that case I want to show them my skill set, right? And actually walk them through the entire journey of that particular project and not just like a summary. So then basically just so first of all I just divided case studies into 2. One for my website just to show what I've done, and then if I'm applying for a job or maybe like I'm doing a job interview and then they ask me to show them some of the projects that I've worked on, those ones I would probably expand on them proper just so that they can understand the work I did, the efforts that went into it, and then be convinced of my skill sets and everything like that, right? So yeah, for me that's basically it. Nothing too fancy at the moment, just something short to get the work done, right? And then I think I got that inspiration from looking at a couple of design agencies and how they go about their case studies, right? So there's one that I'm looking at right now. The agency is called Mirage, and then their case studies are basically just broken down very, very simple. They have the intro, right? And then the challenge, the outcome, and then they show you the visuals. That's essentially it. Then they move on to the next one and so on. But probably these same people, if they are pitching to a client or something, right, they'll expand on what they did just so that their clients can get a better appreciation of the work that they did, right? So yeah, them things I'm just like, then some nothing fancy, just straightforward, show what you do, get the work done, and then you move on to the next one.
Yeah, so I just checked the website, the company you mentioned. I mean, very solid. I just wanted to add, so I think I sent the link there. Maybe the listeners can just check her out, Rachel Howe, check her website, and then look at her case study. I think it's one of the ones that I read and actually enjoyed because she did talk about everything. She like, I mean, I'll not say it's plenty, but then if you are reading it, you kind of understand what is happening there, not necessarily changing our process there. So you guys can check that out. I don't know if we'll be able to add it to the show notes, but yeah, Rachel Howe, and I think we might also mention Mirage. All right, over to Sam.
Charlie, ask the question again.
Why now you mad? Hey, over now.
If I talk right now, they'll say we're
Go
going
and sit down. Go and sit down.
Sit down, my friend. Go and sit down.
I want that part of Sam. Go and sit down.
Go and sit down, my friend.
No, I see the way they are treating me here.
That's a question.
I want cheating or remove.
Yeah, we did talk about the case studies. So case studies, yeah. What be your take on the current wave, how it did the format?
Yeah, me, I don't. I know. Yeah, some people say like they are all. It's monotonous, the right word. Like they all look the same, and they all have like the same structure and all that. I don't have any strong opinions on that. Me, at the end of the day, I mean, I get it, right? It's like if they all look the same, obviously, if recruiters are looking at it and out of 10 portfolios or 10 case studies, they all have the same structure, they could tend to overlook certain things. But then again, it can also play to your benefits, right? Because if recruiters look at a certain case study, and out of the case studies they look at, they all have the same structure, it helps them. They know like the parts that they can quickly spot and then pick the necessary info they need, right? So if they know that, let's say design thinking, empathize is the first stage, right? So they know if you use design thinking framework or whatever framework you use, they know from here you go here, you go here, you go here. They can quickly scan through and know what you did there, what you did there, what you did there, and then they can make a quick decision. And most of the time, that's what really happens. I've worked I've worked on a lot of things. I've worked on a recruiting platform before, so I kind of have like a fair understanding of how recruiters think when they are going through like people's resumes and all these portfolios, right? So I don't have any strong opinions. You don't necessarily have to be different, like use a different structure just because everybody's doing this, so you want to do this. I mean, if you want to, fine, but essentially you just have to document your process. So if you first spoke to the PM about this, you document that you spoke to the PM about this, trying to understand the problem, and then from there you did some research, secondary research, to try and understand what really happens within this industry, blah 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 blah. And from there, once you got a better understanding, maybe you wrote this, sent it back to the PM, blah 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 blah. You did that, right? And then you have all that, the whole documents, right? And again, treat it like a design problem. You don't necessarily have to put that raw thing into like your online portfolio, right? Because the user base is different. The recruiter looking at your portfolio, they probably they have like a lot of things on their plate. They want to spend like 1, 2, 3 minutes on a case study, look at it, see if it meets what they are looking for or not. Then they can make a decision to pass you on to the design manager, right? And that is where you have to actually like show your presentation skills and then walk through like what exactly you did. Like you did this from here, you did that, and this was how you broke down the problem. This was how you validated the problem. This was how you came up with a solution. This was how you validated the solution and how you went about it. Most of the time, that is when you like first get to the interview stage and you need to present. Most of the time, that's where you need like that detail. But for your portfolio or your online portfolio, when you're applying for a job, a lot of the time you don't need as much detail unless it's like a senior role, right? Because a friend of mine some time back was applying for a senior role, and that was like they needed that much detail because before they even reached out to you, they have to make sure they are not wasting their time speaking to the wrong person, right? But for like some of these entry level, sometimes mid level roles, you don't really need all that detail on your portfolio. Like it's just it can make the recruiter looking at your portfolio miss out on some of the details you think they like will be beneficial to them making a decision. They will just skim through it. If they don't see any imagery, if they don't see like any thing that will catch your attention and it's all text, you probably be doing more harm than good to yourself. So I don't have any strong opinions. I just feel like do what you need to do. If you feel like you need to follow a template, follow it, because it can play to your advantage. Because a lot of recruiters, again, they are not experts in design, right? They are just looking for catchy things. If they see an image, maybe they see an image of a sketch, they see an image of a wireframe, a mock-up, blah blah blah, and you write some short text underneath what you did, blah blah blah, blah, and that is it. And then maybe at the end of the case study, you can say, maybe you can guide them to where they can get a detailed documentation of whatever that you did, maybe a PDF, or maybe you noted down that you are open to explaining this more in depth in the call, right? That's like a call to action for them to be interested in bringing you onto the call. So yeah, I feel like just do what you need to do.
Yeah, man. We preach you honomo. So yeah, but sometimes too, which I know some people don't really consider, is you have to look at the industry you are applying to, the type of companies you want to work in. because some companies, they look for well-documented case studies. Maybe you are going to a UX role, definitely they will be looking at some of these things. Maybe it's a UI role. You can't tell me a UI role going into a UI role with a case study that has a lot of word and go make sense. Definitely me say if I no go spy, because I'm looking at how visually good you are. So in that case, crafting your case study, you need to be mindful of what you need to present, how you go present them. Your presentation, they count. And maybe, yes, like Sam, you were saying, maybe it might be of like, what is it? It might help you in other ways. But there is this thing where I feel like, oh, there is no originality. Okay, originality in a sense that you see them going with a particular format, but in actual sense, the format doesn't really connect with each other because they needed to bring that particular process just because you have to use that in this template. That's where I have my issues, because at the end of the day, if you are going with your empathize, ideate, whatever, and I see a connection between, okay, you doing this and it's applying or affecting your decision you made over here, yeah, it makes sense. But then if it's all scattered across, where it's more like, okay, after I did this, nothing that makes sense give me. Definitely I will look past that, which I see most people doing it. You go see them a persona, then what then they do self, you they wonder how this persona self they play a part in what then they do, but they have to bring it because most design case studies they've seen people using persona, so they have to, or probably was it a wireframing, which probably might not make sense in that context, but they have to bring it because yes, people they use them. Like I said, stick to the point. What do you want the user, the person reading to see, right? Look at the context at which you are applying the rule for. Maybe it be Apple. Maybe you will see how them are designers, they do them, craft them case studies. Based on that, it will give you a fair idea of how to craft yours. So sometimes you have to consider this. Against you not being original in a sense that you follow a template which they make sense in what you've crafted in the first place. Like it just the tally. You get it. Just do what it they need. Sam.
Yeah, I mean, in you following a template doesn't mean all the things that are in the template. It means you need to follow it. So, because if you go and fabricate some things in the interview, how much you go make shit, right? Because if you go and say, because you see the templates, or they say they did persona or they did journey maps, and so you fabricate some journey map, be that you did not do. At some point, some things will not tally. Just like Jeff, you were saying, some things will not tally. And then in the interview, you'll be asked questions. And then if you are not able to answer them, and then you expose yourself, that one day you will make shit. Right. So, I mean, using a template doesn't mean that just... I know, I mean, some people do that. It doesn't mean because, this template say at this point, use user story. So, you can formulate some user story, be that you do not use in your project. Right. That one there, that's like a very wrong thing to do. If you did not use that thing that the template is asking for, you could probably think through and see what you did that will probably like similar to whatever it is that is in that. But if it is not, you didn't do any of that, just take it out. It's as simple as that. Just take it out and just state what you did. Don't fabricate anything, because you really go make shit during the interview if you are being asked questions and you are not able to answer. Because I've seen that thing happen countless times, where you ask people questions. They like you they present like user interviews they did and the responses, and then you ask them questions about that and they are not able to answer, and then even the responses, you are not sure how it connects to how they arrived at a solution, right? So it's just like they ask people these questions, they responded, and now they went to design, or you've seen, or they just do some wireframe and then they do some mock-up, and then that is it. But you are not really sure how they filtered out those responses, validated them to see which ones they want to go with, to actually use for the mock-up or the next stages, right? It doesn't connect. It's just like bam, user story, bam, jet persona, bam, mock-up, bam, sketch, bam, and even the sketch self. Michael, I don't know if what you have to say is related to that, but the sketch, I have a big issue with those things, the sketch and the wireframes. But Michael, we'll come to that one.
So just like what then somebody talk, right? Or what Jeff said talk. Basically, all you have to do is that the case study has to be about what you've done or what you did during the project, right? Templates or not, because I mean, as somebody talk, say if you don't do where you include if they ask you questions about it during the interview, you go make sure. I mean, you really go make sure though. No, at the end of the day, you just don't get a job. That be all. No long things. All right, but yeah. So just it has to be based on what you did, nothing else. And then make sure that everything in there, when they ask you a question, you can answer. Right? If you do sketches for inside, where you want to put your sketches for inside, put them for inside. You don't do sketches, no need to do sketches. If you don't do wireframe, no go force wireframe for anywhere. It just has to be what you did. Because if you sketch something, right, you can put it in there and then talk about how the sketch guided you through the design, right? What you were able to accomplish with your sketching. You can just put it there and then talk about it, right? So that at least if it's in the interview and then you tell them that, oh, you did sketches for XYZ reasons, and then this is what the sketches you did helped you achieve, right? In their head, they know that, okay, this is part of your design process. And then if they bring you on board, this is probably how you work. I mean, if you don't include it, it's really like a give or take anyway. But then mostly once you are showing them that this is your design process in an interview, and then they bring you on board as part of the team, they will kind of expect you to go with, like, to work in that same way, right? And then that is where, if you can't live up to the expectation that you gave them, you probably be found wanting, because by all means, they'll let you go. These companies, they are not really family like that.
Yeah, man. And before we come to the sketches part or the wireframing part, I see this case study, right? The person on top, he wrote that they did this IA, so that's the information architecture. But the IA be actually user flow. So in my head, I'm like, this person, if they say he know what they do, then because this be the things that they talk, they follow blindly because they feel like, oh, it's supposed to be in it. But then you realize, what then they do, like there is no correlation. Yeah, because how IA, I mean, you could have done a research, but probably sake of, say IA, then user flow, right? Sometimes the way the structure they you go figure it be the same, but it not be the same. User flow be more like it be more of tags based, right? Where, okay, this be how the user will go about this particular task. Where your IA be more of the structure of the pages, right? Maybe this page, this be the number of things he did, this be but because they are following blindly or using a particular template, they kind of do these mistakes where they sell them out. That's why they talk, I see most case studies in this checklist sort of where they have to follow them. But they read them now, they see that disconnecting these things and they use, right?
So I've seen this countless times where people, you see, or they say they are doing wireframing or they are doing sketching, and then they end up like showing you, okay, I did sketches, I did wireframe, and then here's the final mockup. And then you go back and you realize the wireframe is like a black and white version of the mockup. And I'm like, number one, so
this thing again, this convo again. We don't have this convo before. When we have this convo,
Charlie, I know. They ever see this thing online, especially the Instagram creators. I'm saying, this thing vex me. I'm like, yo, do you guys understand the purpose of like sketching and wireframing? like it's not a black and white version. Again, it goes back to the checklist thing you talk about. It's not because people they do wireframe, so me too I for do wireframe just to say I know how to do wireframe, and people want like have to focus again on going back to what I said earlier about visuals and things looking perfect. That the wireframe, like the one make it look the sketching, they won't make the lines look straight. And I was like, yo, no, that's not the purpose. You are not even understanding. The purpose of this sketching and wireframing thing is to help you iterate on various ideas to arrive at the best one. I mean, yes, it could, in like some rare instances, it could happen that there maybe one of the wireframes could end up being the final mockup you go with. But most of the time, that's not the case. Like the sketching, you will do lots of sketches, share with your team, discuss, and then pick one or two things from each of the sketches. And yeah, sometimes you can even these days I mean they skip wireframe entirely because again that's the benefit of having a design system. Once you can sketch something real quick, then you know which components you are going with, and it helps you speed up on things, right? But then again, you can still do wireframe if that's your vibe. But yo, if you put that thing in your case study, and the sketch, the wireframe, and the final mockup, they literally look the same thing. The wireframe is like a black and white version of the mockup, and then the sketch is like a line version of your mockup. Boss, you are just fucking up yourself. Nah, because like there's no iteration. So what is the purpose of this sketch in the first place? What is the purpose of this wireframe you did in there? Like what is the goddamn purpose? You could have just skipped it. It's fine if you don't sketch. Would that be the thing? It is fine because you probably have a design system with all the existing components. That is even a plus. You can even state it in there that I built a design system, blah, blah, to just help developments, like speed up development speed, which cut down time. You did the ABC, blah, 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 blah. It shows that you have this expertise, you have this skill that could probably help the people if they bring you on board, right? State it. And so because of that, it allows you and your team to skip all these processes unless you absolutely need to, right? Because there could be some instances where you need to come up with some new layouts or new things that you don't presently have in your design system. That's fine. You can just go straight to the mockup or you can do sketches. But the purpose of sketching and wireframe is to show iteration, right? So if I see, okay, it's okay. But don't put that in your case study. I beg you. If you do that right now, I'm going to delete it. I'm begging you. Because I think that it really bore me every time I see, especially if these Instagram influencers, they'll say wireframing versus mockup. Then the wireframe be the black and white version of the mockup. It vex me past.
Please,
relax.
Hey, also, you vex you there. Make it there. Cool down.
Please, in our defense, it's for content. I'm
Go and sit down. Educate people right. Go and sit down.
In our defense, it's for content.
Go and sit down.
No. Let me. Michael, you go and sleep. All right. Let me just add to what Sam is saying. Let's rewind back to the time we were talking about the whole productivity thing, right? And we're talking about how people on social media make it seem like productivity be easy. And when we're talking about the whole social media stuff and all that, what Sam is saying is 100%. Like, there's no goddamn way your wireframe will be the exact same thing. Like, maybe one or two stuff, yeah, but definitely from your sketches moving to wireframe and then your final designs are definitely, there's going to be some little tweaks, right? But what I'm saying is, because the reason I have to defend is because I've made a video like that before. Like, mostly it's just purposely for content, right? Like, maybe you do a wireframe and then you show, it's just visual, let me put it that way. In this case, if we are trying to, let's say we are talking in the case of the case studies where in that thing be like, or maybe it be rubbish or something like that, yes. But then to talk about the whole video side, it's just a fancy thing people are doing to just, because, I mean, people do a day in their life. Normally, those things is actually planned because sometimes that's not even how their day goes and all that. So sometimes it's just for content or something like.
So therefore, add disclaimer.
Therefore, because me, I've seen one video where the guy mentioned in his caption that this is not how his design process is, but it's just because of the Instagram content, bro. But then again, it all boils down to the fact that you don't have to learn from every single thing you're seeing online there or take from everybody there. Get the experience for yourself.
Just like some talk a couple of episodes ago, say if you want to learn design, be socials.
Exactly.
Be Twitter, you go move. Was Twitter, baby, now go. I mean, so once you ask Yakafra. But yeah, so about the case studies, yes, we've touched on some of the issues and how we go make ours effective. The word is effective. So if you craft case studies way and for your umbrella, and I know they get you into the first stage of the interview or whatever, then that means something is definitely wrong. You need to look at it. And right now we are in the situation where AI is on the rise. You can use some of these AI tools to craft your case studies. Charlie, make use of them. At the end of the day, no one will know if you used AI or not. As long as it doesn't sound like with the AI in our throat. you are good to go, because at the end of the day, AI, if you give them the right prompt, like I said, always
You get the right
you
answer.
get the right answers. Exactly. If you want that human touch, please make it known to the AI. Say, you don't want that touch for inside, so make it Adam. So it's just it's just you making good use of it. I know there's not an AI combo, but I want you guys to know that AI can help you craft your case studies. If you struggle with words, use AI. It will speed up your process, like speed up big time. Right now, Notion has this AI.
Listen,
Then-
go and listen to Jeff. AI will come and take your job.
Charlie, we are not getting into that.
I was just talking about recently Notion incorporating AI in their, what is it?
Notion AI.
Yeah, Notion AI.
It'd be very, very nice.
That also helps in some of these things. So yeah, I mean, just know that if your case studies is not working, you could literally put the whole thing. You just cram everything for the two inside. It go feel break calm down. Give you. If you think I'm lying, try it and see. Anyway, thanks for listening to us. Case studies, design processes. We've had quite a lengthy convo on this. So don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Design Junkies, and also follow us on our social media channels, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn at The Design Junkies. You also find our personal accounts in there where you can give us a follow to as well. So yes, on that note, peace. We out.
All right, thank you very much for bringing me on the call. My name is Ozenwa Oluwatobi, and I am a product designer. I've been in design space for about